Mishus, Abba Mari Shlita. Where are you, Dad? I don't see. Where? I don't see. I don't see. It's a big island, but I don't see. Huh? Okay. It's okay. Wherever he is, you should be zeicha to come and learn with his Eineklach for many, many more years, Bez Hashem. It's just Bishas Abba Mari Shlita should be zeicha to come back and learn with the Eineklach for many, many more years. Bishas Rabbanim Achashuvim, Talmidei Chachamim, the Taira Brida, the Chasonim of the Heilige Kala. And this is not just this is already the Yarchei, the Kala. We're at the Kala Kol HaKitzim. Shkoyach. We're holding by the end. We're holding Kala Kol HaKitzim. We're holding at the end where we have to get some clarity. I'm sure there's a tremendous amount of Chaimer that was learned, tremendous amount of Havana, tremendous sugis. And we were zeicha to hear from the Gedolei, Rosh Hashiva of Artzeinu HaKadesha. What could be more than that? We heard from the Gedolei Rosh Hashiva of Artzeinu HaKadesha. And the emes is, I think that the only shaila to such a sugya, yoyrid, and unfair business practices, very difficult sugya. wasn't an easy 4 days. And the truth is that if there's anybody here I remember in the Haim, remember sports a little bit? There was something in the Haim, in baseball. And when I grew up, there was something called the cleanup hitter. Now there was the tachlis, what I remember of the cleanup hitter was they needed him to come in and to hit, it was like a grand slam. That's what they wanted. They wanted he should come in and it's like a real, because the bottom of the ninth and the bases are full and they needed him to hit a grand slam. Now everybody understands that B'tachlis HaPashtis, you had a whole week of grand slams. And you're not holding anymore by the bottom of the ninth and the bases are loaded and we need somebody to come in and save the day. It's something of the opposite. Betzim, you learned this sugya and you know the sugyas, and the truth is, then the only kasha is, so what am I doing here? What am I doing over here? So I remember there was another medrash, something about college basketball. Does anybody here know about college basketball? Okay, so I'll explain it. In college basketball, you have a mitzias like this. You don't have this in the NBA. But in college basketball, you'll have that at the end of a game, when they're up by like 40 or 50, you don't have these types of numbers in the NBA. I don't know if the NBA is still there. Ich weiß nicht, if Mr. Bird and Larry and the whole chevra, ich weiß nicht. I don't know, ich weiß nicht. It's also a medrash, wherever the youngsters don't know. I remember you're up by 40, so in college basketball, I used to go and yell at the people that were there. What they would do is, if they were up by 40, they would put in a player who's not mamish on the team. He's the assistant. He's during the practice session, he helps, but he's not good enough batsman to be on the team, but they're up by 40. That's what I remember. They would put him in, and when he would score, the place would go Meshiga. Right? That's what I remember. He would go Meshiga because it was just gishmak and just to give everybody a chance. They would go all the way down to the minor leagues. That's maybe why I'm here. But then I was thinking, I know the real pshat why I'm here. I spent the whole week trying to figure out all these words. Mit the Marufia and mit Arunda. Marufia sounds like some Italian mafia. The Marunda sounds like some Spanish gang or something. And you see there's the Machloikis, the Maram Padva is fighting against the Goy. I feel like I'm nostalgic in the old Jewish press, and the Ramal comes in to save the day over here. It took me a week just to figure out these words and to figure out what's going on over here. So I hope, Bezos Hashem, after a week of us all figuring out these words and figuring out what's going on over here, let's make a kinyan. No, not just a mahapich. Not just a kinyan, not a mishapara. Let's try to make a kinyan. How are we going to make a kinyan? You know more than me at this point by now. And now we're all equal. So now let's try to get l'maisadik. Let's try to get some of the cases and try to dan them l'maisa. That we should be zeicha, we should come out of here with something in the hand. We should walk away with not just the words and the sugis and this. Let's walk out of here, Bez Hashem, with the kinyan, when we're at the end of the game where everything is going to be gishmak, Bez Hashem. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol niyeh b'dvaroi. So, I spent the whole week, Rabbi Isai, trying to figure out, welche sort charora is it? Was it a Danish? What was this charora? Was it an eclair, a dos? Maybe it was like a bit like eier kichel, so that you can have it with the fish at Toisvis is heading over there with the Metzudas Dogim. What was this unbelievable charora that everybody spent the whole week trying to figure this out? What is this thing? But let's, Bez Hashem, we'll get Lamaisa, and we're going to know what that charora is once and for all, Bez Hashem. And what we learned, Rabbi say, every shaila that we done, das wissen, these shailas are very, 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 very severe, very serious. You're not just dealing with two parties, Yenem's a geld, and this one's money, and that one's money. We're not just dealing with that. We're dealing also with the consumer. We're also dealing with a consumer. And sometimes saying, he shouldn't open a store, he should open a store, he should this. Sometimes who's the one that is going to benefit from this? Maybe the consumer. What does it say in the Gemara in Baba Metzia and Daf Samich? The Gemara Baba Metzia brings down the machlekes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbanan when one wants to come and open up a rival store. And the Gemara brings down Rabbi Yehuda had very chomer de keshitas. He had very, very strong shitas not to open up a store. If there's somebody else that already has a store, he says, don't do it. It's aser. He was very, very severe in the parasha of Yerid Lumnis Chaveiroi. Rabbanan, the Rabbanan say, not only is it mutter, Zok the Gemara, Zachar Latoiv, a brach on dein Kop, you should get a brach on his head if he opens up another store. Why? Because the consumer also is going to have a tremendous benefit from this. So when we talk here, it's very easy sometimes to say, it's not Erlich, and what he's doing is not right, or what he's doing is not right. And we have to don everybody over here. Everybody has to be donned over here. And you see words in the sugya that you don't find in the Gans, Kol HaTorah Mamish. Kapasakta lichayuse, so mehargit mich. You're taking away my life source. You're taking away my life supply, he screams. And Chazal are Messiachas to this. And they call him a Rasha. A Rasha, to say the words, what we're talking about. Imagine calling a Yid a Rasha. Can't think of anything more noir as the Gemara Kedushin than Daf Kav Chesed. You're calling a Yid a Rasha. And the Gemara calls him a Rasha, no less than the Heilige Gemara calls him a Rasha. If it's doing the wrong thing, and it's takenoni mahapich b'charara, then he's considered a Rasha. And the Gemara in Sanhedrin and Apayal, if the Gemara says ve'eshes ve'eyoloi timei, look what we're talking about over here. Somebody that could do this, it's congruent. It's shavet, it's somebody taking somebody else's wife. It's something noira what Chazal are talking over here. We have to realize the severity of the sugyas. We have to understand. And the Baisai, like the Chazon Ish says over here, we're not trying to even fight over here. What does the Chazon Ish say in Gimel Tesvav? Such beautiful words in the Chazon Ish. I'll even read it to you. The words in the Chazon Ish. He says, if this is what's supposed to be, he's not going to cut off my life source. Nobody can cut off your life source. But the Chazon Ish says, I want to go to Beis Din just to know that if he's doing the wrong thing, so then my choivas shtadlis is mechayev me to go to Beis Din and to see that he's going to not do what he's doing. That's my choivas shtadlis. The Chazon Ish says, it says in the Gemara, pasakta l'chayusei, ein al sad ha-mitzias. It's nothing that he could do to you. It's all the Heilige Bashefer. Ella al sad ha'ishtadlis. Kol mizanaysev shel adam aksuvin loy. Mirash Hashanah vad Yom Kippur. Lo yachzer loy. He won't lose anything. So then why are you going to Beis Din and why are you saying, is he a Rasha? Why are you going to the Beis Din and saying he's not allowed to open the store? That's your chayvus ishtadlis. But there's no mocking for him to get upset. There's no mocking for him to feel that his life source is being cut off. So this is what we'll have to don, Rabbi say. But the severity, where do you find such a thing? The Sma in Chesed Mishpat, the words he writes. He says, yes, we call him a Rasha. We're machriz this in shul, Rabbi say, after the Mazel Tovs. The Gabbai gets up in shul, he says, I'd like to wish a Mazel Tov. Mr. Hiegelberg, he had an Einikel, everybody says Mazel Tov. You should all know that Mr. Golden Schnitzel over there, you see him, he's eating an eclair. It's a little bit dirty because he had to run and get it. He's a Rasha. He's a very big Rasha, as a matter of fact. And Elam should be aware because Mr. Himmelstein was trying to get that Einam's Miris. Versteht the Matziv, Rabbi say? That's the Matziv over here. So we're talking about that. You can call somebody a Rasha and you can be machrizit in the shul and you're mechuyev to be machrizit in the shul. So this is what we're talking. And Rashi says, what's the sugya of Ani Mahapich? Yoyred l'chayei chaveiroi. There's Ramban. There's a Mordechai really in the Ran. You can explain it up either Ramban. They say the makor of our sugya is Vasisa Yoshev HaToiv. I'm not going to be Meirich, you for sure have heard Shirim about this, but the Ramban is so beautiful, the words in the Ramban. The Ramban, everybody knows that there's a famous Ramban about Kedoshim Tiyu. And the Ramban explains that Lagabe ben Adam lamakim, Lagabe a person is heiligkeit, is ruchnius. So the Ramban explains that the Torah is not going to go and say on every single thing, there's something nevel b'shas Torah, and you know what's right, and you know what's not right, and you know that that's something that's pasnished. It's not for you. That's in Ben Adam the Makim. It's like the Ramban, in Ben Adam l'chaveroi, there's also a koilel statement, one statement that is koilel everything. The Torah can't go and say, don't park in a way where you're taking up 2 spots. The Torah is not going to come and say, don't go and take somebody else's parking spot. So the Torah says the words, V'asisa yosher v'atoiv an erlichkeit, be an erlich yid. And that's a koilel statement, one big statement, swooping statement, which is koilel all the halachas that we're going to learn. So let's Rabbi say, let's go case by case. Some of the cases came to me, which comes to you. Some of the cases will dan, and Bez Hashem, we'll see what comes out. We'll start with Bez Hashem, with the sugya of Ani Mahapich. We'll start like that. And I have over here a case I'd like to tell the Olam. And I also want, you're here for a week, Rabbi say. Now we're on the next level. Now already, we're not going to go one by one. Rashi Shita, Rabbeinu Tam Shita. You know already Rashi. You know already Rabbeinu Tam. You already know Metzia. You know what's going on over here. You know Pisa Gdomim, where it plays a role and where it doesn't play a role. So let's talk business. Let's talk Tachlis. So Beryl asked a Shadchan to set him up. Beryl went to a Shadchan and he said, could you set me up with a girl? And this girl nobody knew about her. She had just come onto the market. And this was, nobody knew. Could you set me up with that girl? And the Shadchan heard about this girl and heard this unbelievable milas, overwhelming milas. This might be good for my son. And the Shadchan himself said, such amazing milas. He found out that this girl, she has mamish Yerushalayim geld. She's tsanua geld. She's mamish a kluger geld, miyuches geld. Right? So, mamish, and one by one, and not only that, geld. Mamish, right? And then I write over here, and I'm not sure if I mentioned geld. Right? Geld, alle meiles. So he told his wife, I think I found the shidduch, wie heißt dem Spuche Geld. Yeah? So wir machen a shidduch. Okay? And it went through. He made a shidduch, the Shadchan made a shidduch for his own son with Geveret Geld. You know? Okay. No. Kitzur, the next day in yeshiva, everyone's talking about the shidduch and the Shadchan, and he's walking by a bacher. And the bacher, we'll call him Beryl. Beryl says, here's them talking about Yena Shadchan. That Shadchan, he's a Rasha Marusha. The Gemara says Rasha. I don't know if you call him a Rasha Marusha, but he's a Rasha Marusha. So the Shalom Eshiv was walking by during this conversation. And he says, you call a person a Rasha? How could you call somebody a Rasha? He's also very fine, upstanding Shadchan and everything. He says, the Gemara says in Kedushin and Daf Kav Ches, HaKoirei lechaveiroi Rasha yoyred imoy lechayov. You're allowed to go after him. He calls you a Rasha, you could go after him. You know what Rashi says over here? What do you mean go after him? Rashi says you could go after his business. If you call somebody a Rasha, you could go. So this Bacher said to the Shalom Eshiv, oh, you mean like he did to me? The Bacher was mekaven to the Bach. Her Biel Sirkis. What do we mean? He's mekaven to the Bach. Mekaven to the Bach. You know what the Bach says? Why do we call this guy a Rasha? Such a strong statement. We call this person a Rasha. Sak the Bach, listen to the words of the Bach. He's called a Rasha. HaKoyre lechaveiroi Rasha yoyred imoy lechayav. If somebody calls somebody else a Rasha, you're allowed to go after his business. Sak the Bach im kein lehepech. Hayoyred lechaye chaveroi. If you go after my business, you're a Rasha. We see that Rasha is equal. So the Bach said, you mean you can come after you mean exactly what he did to me? So the Shalom Eshiv is listening to this. Well, what happened? And he told him the whole story. No, I told him to suggest for me a shidduch. He took the shidduch for himself. V'zuk min yetzt. Now the oilam over here already goes to Talmidei Chachamim. You're more than me already. The Gemara says everyone knows here. Rav Moshe Zichron Levracha in Aleph Tzadi Aleph has a tshuva about a shidduch. Let's try maybe to be makavin at least to the psak of the Goyin Rav Moshe, just to come to the dust of Rav Moshe, because Rav Moshe is a little bit of a chiddush. Rav Moshe says over here, Anisha is a metzia. Anisha is a metzia. Shidduch is a metzia. No, Anisha is a mashia. So over here, we're dealing with somebody who free will, and it's a free market for a woman, and Mamela, it's a mitzvah. So nothing, it's not like a Mecca, you can't get this anywhere else. So Moshe says, okay, maybe it'll be totally in your Shemayim, and we'll see also maybe all other cheshbainis. But Moshe seems to go with a very strong malach over here, that it's a mitzvah. And the truth is, Moshe, and Memela, once it's a mitzvah, there's no ani ma'apich. He was trying to get something that he couldn't get anywhere else. This girl is something that he can't get anywhere else. No, Moshe has a raya. He says, look, we find in Chazal, the Gemara tells us that a person could get muras, he can get not just engaged, but kipshuta and erison, mamish on Tisha B'Av and Chalamoyed and everything. Why? Kishem yakti menu acher state. Kishem yakti menu acher. No, sir. Moshe says, what's the case? You understood, Moshe? What's the case? We're talking about somebody who's making an erison on Chalamoyed, on Tisha B'Av. What? If she got free, I didn't speak to her beforehand. There was nothing that was discussed. Must be there was something discussed. So what's going on here? There was obviously some level of negotiations that took place over here. So Moshe says, you see from over here, a woman's a mitzvah. A woman's a mitzvah. So if she's a mitzvah, it doesn't matter. Negotiations, non-negotiations. It doesn't matter. How could you get out of her, Moshe? He said, look, the Gemara, Rashi over there sounds like he could daven. He could daven. You could daven that somebody else shouldn't have the mitzvah. I could daven that I should get that mitzvah. You don't see ad kedei, Rav Moshe, that maybe you can actually actively, aggressively do something. But maybe we could be mekavin to the guy in Rav Moshe, the psak of Rav Moshe. It's very interesting. There's a sefer Atzmis Yosef on Kedushin. A very, very famous sefer. The Atzmis Yosef over here says a hafladik chiddush. It's an unbelievable chiddush over here. He says that it's possible. He's coming to answer a Gemara, but he says it's possible that the only time that there's going to be a din of oni mahapich bicharara is when there's an oni being mahapich. You're yourself busy trying to get it. Not that you sent somebody else to do it for you. Oni mahapich bicharara. Where's the schlechtkeit? When you yourself are in the middle of trying to get, you're trying to get that something, whatever that something is, and then somebody else comes in and goes and tries to get that something that you're trying to get. Okay, but let's say I sent the shliach. So then it's not me. Not me. So the Atzmis Yosef says, you might have a raya from a Gemara that it's not a problem. The only problem is when I myself am trying to get the thing. But if I sent the shliach, it's not a rasha. What's the Gemara? So he brings the Gemara. The Olam probably saw the Gemara. The Gemara brings Rabbi Chasida went to be Mekadesh and Isha for his son. He went to be Mekadesh Isha, came there, and he said, look, it's nice for my son, it's also nice for me. And he took her. He took her as a shidduch. So the Gemara says, wie can design a zazach? How can he do it? He's called, his Lashon, his name is Rabbi Chasida, his name was. Right? The Gemara calls him a chosid. He was an unbelievable person. So how could he do such a thing? So the Gemara says over there, not, how could he do such a thing? He's a Rasha. The Gemara says, how could he do such a thing? It's Ramoyes. Ramoyes is what's that in English? A charlatan, I think, right? A swindler. That's not as bad as a Rasha. A Rasha in Chazal is the worst thing. You call someone a Ramai, it's one thing. You call somebody a Rasha, that's a neurotic thing. So the Gemara says, Klur, he's not a Rasha. Shek the Atzmis Yosef, he's a Rasha. He's a Rasha. Here I am. You're supposed to be getting a shidduch for me. You take the shidduch for yourself. That's ani ma'apich b'charara is a Rasha. You know what the Atzmis Yosef answers this kasha? Or Moshe could have answered, it's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah. There's no question. It's a mitzvah. It's not a Rasha. Maybe it's a Ramai. But Moshe, that's how he would answer the kasha. The Atzmis Yosef, you know how he answers the kasha? He says, no, the only time there's a din of an oni mahapich is when it's the oni alain, and he's the one that's trying to get the girl, the item, whatever it is. So then, Memela, that's considered a Rasha. You're going after something that he's physically going after himself. Mashenken, if he sends a shliach, that's something different. If he sends a shliach and you go and shepherd the shliach that he was trying to get it through a shliach, Kanira, it's less of a schlechtigkeit. If you're the one who's actually trying, so then that's much more of a schlechtigkeit. But here, if you're not the act, just one moment, if you're not actually doing it and somebody else is doing it, so then if you try to get his thing, you know what that is? That's not rishis, it's ramoyis. I'm sorry? Shlucha shalodem kamoisai, but when in the heart it feels different. Now come over here, Rabbi say over here, we're not talking in halacha, we're in the balabatishkeit. We're trying to figure out what is it considered a shlechter. A shlechter zukta heileke. The Atzmis Yosef is the person, I'm going after this thing and you're coming after, but if I send somebody, I'm sitting back, obviously it wasn't so serious to you. If you were going to do it, you would have done it yourself. But Rabbi say, was? Oh, you got, you know what, with that type of lumdis, you could take Lavid and build a rocket ship to the moon. Right? You remind me of the joke. There was once a fellow, his wife kept saying, you better fix in the back over there, there's a hole in the backyard. He says, kid said one day, he says, you see, you didn't fix the backyard, you didn't fix the gate. Okay, and what? A ganif came in and stole everything. What? It doesn't make sense. I checked. There was no hole there. She said, look, this is the hole. He says, what are you talking about? It's love it. It's my fault. The ganif is an amoritz. So over here, in a chanami, avada. And avada. But over here, if you want to say this fellow's a Rosh, it's got to be aggressive behavior that he's going after it. That's when it hurts. Aber bei sei, there's a wonderful on this. Aber the Rambam steht verkehrt. The Rambam says this case, punktlich. And the Rambam says not like that. Was steht in the Rambam? Der heilige Rambam sagt, if somebody sends you as a shliach to be mekadesh and isha, sagt the Rambam, and you do it for yourself, you're a rasha. So again, the Rambam's against the Gemara, but that is one thing. But the Atzmis Yosef doesn't know a Rambam. So maybe you'll say Atzmis Yosef, Mr. Rambam. That maybe you're Russia. Maybe Atzmis Yosef, you'll say, Mr. Rambam. So I don't know anything. I know I'm reading over here in the Akdam of the Atzmis Yosef, he was the Sefer Yisoid of this Masechta. Who looked in this Sefer, who I'm quoting right now? The Shara Melech, the Pnei Yeshua, the Avnei Meluim, the Afla, and the Mishnah LaMelech. This was he quotes it, this was the cornerstone of what he used in Masechta Kedushin. What was the Mishnah LaMelech's other favorite Sefer? The Rambam. It's not so mistaber that's Yosef, Mr. Rambam. Let me tell you what the answer is, Rabbi say. You want to hear the answer to the Heilige Rambam and to the Atzmis Yosef and everybody? I tell you, it's a chiddush. It's a chiddush that you know, but it's not the chiddush that you know. It's a chiddush that is based on the Mordechai. We know already, the Mordechai told us, and the Ramah brings this down, the halacha, that at Kama, that there's no pisik domim, at Kama, that it's not a done deal, so it's not a problem of Ani Mahapich. Everyone knows that. Now listen closely. The Atzmis Yosef, I think, is stealing that idea, but he's not saying the exact same thing. He's stealing that idea. He's saying, listen, Ad Kama Meridikaret. The Rambam is talking about a case of where there was already a shidduch and they were already engaged to be married. And you sent the shliach to do the Maaseh Kiddushin, and that's the lashon of the Heilige Rambam. In that case, you're a Rasha. In that case, you're a Rasha. And even though it's Al Yidei Shliach. And why? Because there was a pisuk damim. There was a pisuk damim. It was all done. Masha'en Kain, the Atzmis Yosef, is talking about that there was no pisuk damim yet. It wasn't yet a shidduch. In the case that we're talking about, in the case that's koidim, you're in the shlav beforehand. You're not in the case of where there was a done deal. On that, the Atzmis Yosef is being mechalik. He says, if you yourself are being oisik in it, so then, even if there was no pisuk damim, he's arguing on the Ramah. He's saying like the Prisha that you learned. He's saying like the Prisha, and Rav Moshe Paskins like this Prisha, and the Aruch HaShulchan Paskins like this Prisha. He's saying when there's no Pisuk Damim, the Ramah says if no Pisuk Damim, Gizin Tehait, there's no problem. If it's not done, the negotiations aren't done, no problem. The Atzmis Yosef says no, like the Prisha. And Rav Moshe says that's the minig. The psak is like the Prisha. And Avnei Nezer and Siman Yud Zayin says that the psak is like the Prisha. And Rav Elyashiv, I heard from his holy mouth, you have to be machmer like the Prisha. Erlich Hayid is machmer like the Prisha. So what does it say in the Prisha? He says, no, even if there's negotiations, okay. What type of negotiations? We spoke. You all spoke here. If he says 6 and he says 4, he says, I'm not going a penny higher than 4. I'm not going a penny lower than 6. That's not negotiations. If he says 6 and he says 4, and it looks like they're going to come to an agreement, Zakta Prisha Metarnisht, don't get involved. Don't get involved. On that comes the Atzmis Yosef, and he says, a Davar Nifla. He says, that's only Ad Kama, that a person is oisik on his own. He's oisik on his own. And they're in a very, very high level shlav of negotiations, then you're a Rasha. And that's how he's learning Taka, the Gemara. That's why in our case by Rabin Chasida, Sakter, he's only a Ramai. Then in that case, he's only in the case of where this high level, is a high level negotiation, and you're doing it on your own, so then in that case you're a Rasha. But the Gemara is talking about that Rabin Chasida was a shliach. So we're talking about two chesroinus. Number one, you're not doing it on your own. Number two, it's also not at the final stage of negotiation. So in that case, you're just a Ramai. Rabbi, in our case, Mimon of Shach Beryl can't call him a Rasha. Mimon of Shach. According to the Ramah, of course you can't call him a Rasha. We're way before negotiations and we're way before everything. But the Atzmis Yosef says that even if it's in the shlav of negotiations, so then already you can tell him he's a Rasha. But that's only if you're doing it on your own. So over here, he sent the Shliach. So Mimon of Shach, he cannot call him a Rasha. So that's case number one. You can't call him a Rasha. A person's allowed to do this. Now there's other cheshbonis that maybe mitzvah is different. What does the Marshal say? Maybe it's different because the Marshal Taka says it's a mitzvah. Shall I tell you what bothers me about a mitzvah? That pshat, Rav Moshe. Shall I tell you what bothers me? All the people that you have to be very careful in business today, Rabbi Say, before you say, it's a Messiah, I'm allowed to go after it. You know why? Because you say, somebody the other day was talking to me about a certain case, about a month ago, he told me about a certain worker, it's a Messiah, without him I can't. If I say, and what happens, I'm a month later, so I called him 2 nights ago. I asked him, whatever happened with that worker? No, it didn't work out, but Baruch Hashem, I got somebody else. Now, your wives aren't here and they're not listening. Verstehst? Right? Okay, I got a few reactions now. Well, if I can't get this girl, so then that's it. This shidduch, the bacha falls apart. What happens 3 months later? He's dancing at the chas and he doesn't remember that. We hope he doesn't. He's not even remembering that girl. So, before you say it's a mitzvah and I can't without it, it's not so pashit. Or much as a chiddush. Man, you have to know that. But in our case, Rabbi Say, you have all the reasons in the world you can't call the person a Rasha. It's also mitzvah. Rabbi Say, what's it say in the Shara Tshuva and Tav Pei Beis? There's one kezayis matzah. What do? Try to get it. Try to get it. You don't say it's only machbich. It's a mitzvah. Try to get it. Never fight for any mitzvah, says the Mogen Avram in Simin Nun Gimel Sivkot in Chavav. You never fight for a mitzvah. What did Boaz tell Pliny Almoini? He said, there's a girl, Rusa Mayavis. Why say it in such a mezulzuldik way? Rusa Mayavis. Rus the shiksa, the guy. Why do you speak like that? Teretz is pashit. He knew that Malchus Beis David was coming from her. And he wanted to make sure that Pliny Almoini doesn't want the shidduch. You're allowed to do that. I'm allowed to make it that you shouldn't want such a shidduch. So that's case number one, Rabbi Say. Yeah. Right. Okay. Memela. Right. Afapiken. But we see that shlechkeit of the tircha, even in the case of where you can't do it on your own. But that level, in order to call somebody a rush, it has to be that the pain of having tried to get something on my own. I understand it in this case. Thank you so much. I'm sorry? Memela what? You might be correct. But in order to have that pain, of feeling that someone got in on me, Rabbi Say, just, everyone stop for a moment. Think of when someone did this to you. Okay? Got it? Now you versteh. When I was in the middle of it's a very different thing. Just think for a minute. You have a lot of time to think on the plane about it also. Just think. Okay? I want to go to the next case. I'm sorry. The Shpeit and Hazman Kotzer, V'Amalacha Meruba. Beryl, now let's call this guy Zelig. Zelig was selling his car. Okay, Zelig lives in New York, like everybody, and Zelig was selling his car. At the chasana, there was Anshel. Okay, so Zelig is at the chasana, he's selling his car. Anshel comes over, sitting at a table. He says, I saw that you have on your car, a sales sign on your car. So he says, we start talking, how much? He says, that's my price range. That's my price range. Piece of damim, gewaldig, right? They agree. Okay, well, you would spend, how much does a car cost today? When I grew up, it was like $800 or something like that. Okay. Whatever. Today you lease anyway, so nobody knows what I'm talking about. But so $20,000, that's a good price. Great, wonderful. Shine. The Kitzer, he says, but how are we going to get it? He lives in Baltimore, I forgot to mention. Anshel lives in Baltimore. So Zelig says, but how are we going to get the car to, Anshel says, how am I going to get the car to Baltimore? And also, who's going to be responsible to do the full body check and everything, and all that stuff? Okay, look, but you're interested. He says, no, I'm definitely interested. The price is right. But, I don't know, these things, like, how are we going to, and who's going to be responsible for checking out the car? Okay, they swapped numbers. Afterward, he was at the chasana. He met up with his friend. What's his friend's name? That's the only part I remember. Zundel. Zundel, okay. Zundel, he told him, Zundel, you know this person over here, Anshel, the buyer? He says, yeah, he's a very ehrlich guy, he's a great guy. No, because I'm thinking about selling him something, and already he's getting me a little nervous. He starts talking about who's doing the full body check, how we're getting it to Baltimore, like, what's the Grace Zach, right? He says, well, you selling your car? How much are you selling it for? He says, okay, and the rest is history. So now, kommt Zelig, and he says, I want to know, I'm the seller, I want to know, tell me what the Torah says to do. Should I not sell it to him? This guy, it's a little easier for me to sell it to him, and I know him, and whatever, but I already was in negotiations with him. Now, I want to explain one thing, okay? I know, and you know, that there's no din of ani mahapich when it comes to the moicher. And the moicher is allowed to do what he wants. Most we can have on the moicher is a mechusar amana. But just let's think for a minute. What does the Torah want? He's asking me, this was the question that he wants to know. What does the Torah want me to do? In other words, how could it be that if this person would come and we would say he's in the middle of negotiations, we'll see if we do or not. But if the Torah would say, if the buyer would come and ask me this question, I would tell him, no, it's not right. In the middle of negotiations, it's not right. And you're not right. And not only that, you might even be a Rasha. But now the Meicher comes, and I'm going to say, what? This guy came. So you can say he's Shoigig. You all know that's not going over here. You learned the Sugya. You learned Rav Gidel. You know Shoigig is not an answer over here. Why, what, where? But that's state. You know that already. You know the truth for Ramosha already. You know that already. So now let's figure this out. He wants to know what's the right thing. Again, I have a car. I started negotiations. I had a piece of Gdamim. in the negotiations. But we didn't agree on some of the terms of the sale. Okay? And now this guy comes, I'd rather sell to him. What does the Torah want in this case? So I want to tell you Davar Nifla. There's a Balatanya, the Graz, which I said in the Seichen Tzu in the Marmakaimis over here. The Graz brings this halacha. He brings down that if there's a piece of Gdamim, so then that's, already final. But he says if there's no piece of Gdamim, and the Lashon of the Graz, every drop of ink, the precious Lashon of the Balatanya, he says, if it's Einoi Mechusser Ela Kinyan, in other words, you mamish did even a piece of Gdamim, and it's only lacking Kinyan. So basically, there's a lot in between. What is this? He says, you have a final price, and the only thing you're lacking is a Kinyan. What did the Balatanya add with these words? You know what my Lev tells me he added? He's telling us, don't think final price is everything. The Gemara's example, the Ramah's example is final price. You know what the Ramah is trying to say over here? He's trying to say it's not a done deal. The example of the Ramah of when something is not a done deal is they didn't agree to a price. Usually agree to a price. So then it's a done deal and we just didn't do the kit. But the Balatanya is saying, let's say there are other factors. For example, terms of payment. Let's say there's other factors involved. You agreed on the price, but we didn't agree yet on the terms of payment, and we didn't agree yet on all other types of things. We didn't agree yet on, the price we agreed, but we didn't agree on the shipping. We didn't agree on all these things. So then the Balatanya is saying, so then it's not a done deal, and that in this case, this is not called a piece of Gdamim. And this is the case that the Ramah would be mekel on also. And this Shaila, the Maisa, I asked her of Eliashiv, Zeichet Tzadik Levracha, and he said, in this case, the Ramah would be mekel. In this case, the Ramah would be mekel. So Memela, this person comes to us and he says, what does the Torah want me to do? We tell him, look, you see you didn't agree yet with the terms. You only had a final price, but it wasn't clear. But he's asking me, what does the Torah want us to do? What does the Torah want me to do? So now we have to think, does everybody agree with the Ramah? Does everyone agree with Ramah? I told you, we spoke to Prisha, Rabbi Moshe Zechrona Levracha. He says, no, if they're in high-level negotiations, this sounds to me like high-level negotiations. If they're in high-level negotiations, so then the Torah doesn't want you to get involved. And the Prisha, you shouldn't get involved. And you shouldn't sell it. But maybe it's even more than that. Maybe it's more. There's a Chasam Sofer over here, which is a Davar Nifla, the Chasam Sofer. And this is where you see where the Lumdist and the Halacha comes together, Davar Nifla. Chasam Sofer, in an unbelievable tshuva, in the 118th tshuva in the Chasam Sofer. Chasam Sofer says, that's a beautiful idea. Chasam Sofer says, this whole idea over here, the Ramah comes along and he says, until final price, which we just explained. It means, but until final price, you're still allowed. You're still allowed to try to get it. If there's no final price, you're still allowed to get it. And like I said, the Prisha argues. Listen to what the Chassam Sofer says. He says the whole Ramah, the idea of final price, he says that's all going only in Rabbeinu Tam. That's such a beautiful idea. Let me explain this. The Chassam Sofer doesn't even explain. It's so bullshit to the Chassam Sofer. He says, but in Rashi, no way. Even if you're in negotiations, it's usher. You don't have to come on to the Prisha. The etzim fact that there's negotiations, Rashi would tell you not to get involved. So, mazeh v'amazeh. The Chassam Sofer says it like a double pasha. It's so beautiful, Rabbi Yisai. When you learn the sugi, it's so beautiful. What's the lamdis according to Rabbeinu Tam? The lamdis is unfair business practices. Unfair business practice, nothing to do with mitzvah, unfair business. What's the point of unfair business practices? When we got to an advanced point in the sale, we've got to an advanced shlav of the dinu dvarim, so then it's already called unfair business practice. No, it's an unfair business practice. At what point? Only if you got to the point when already you're so advanced that mamish, they made a pisuk damim. They agreed on a price. That's an unfair business practice. Beforehand, that's regular business tactics. That's regular negotiations. But according to Rashi, it has nothing to do with unfair business, nothing to do with business. According to Rashi, what does it have to do? Sei nicht kein Schlechter. Don't be a Schlechter. What are you bothering this Yid for? You see a Yid, he's trying to get something, he's involved in something. By Hefker, could there be a pisuk damim? He's trying to get this Danish. He's in the middle of trying to get a Danish. Was there a pisuk damim on the Danish? Was there anything about the Danish? So why are you stopping this person from coming in? You know why? Because it's not nice. It's Mr. Schlechter. Rashi says you're being not nice. He says it's not ehrlich, it's not fine, it's not right. You're getting involved when somebody else has an involvement. So once there's involvement, once there's involvement, that's it. You can't get involved once there's involvement. Sagt the Chassam Sofer, Lefi Rashi, and don't forget Yir Shemayim is supposed to be machmir like Rashi. And I think a Sayyid that comes to Yachikad Yerushalayim Yer Kodesh, once you saw the Gedolei Olam, you're already a Yir Shemayim. Oh, you saw Rav Don, you saw Rav Gamliel, you saw the Tzadikei Yador. So you're already a Yir Shemayim. Oh, so Bezai, a Yir Shemayim, he's going to be machmir in Rashi. According to Rashi, Yevadei have to do like the Prisha. Nothing to do with the Prisha. Everyone will agree. Once you have a situation of where involvement, how could you... So that's the Chassam Sofer. Abai says it's a davar nifla as far as a gevaldik, right? Manasseh, Chassam Sofer, heilige Chassam Sofer, the heilige Chassam Sofer. And in a moment, I'm going to put together the Chassam Sofer. You can see what the Chassam Sofer is in the sugya. But on this one, Rabbi say, Manasseh, you look inside the Mordechai, in the Ramah that he's quoting, and this idea that the Ramah says that why is it that by Pisuk Damim, we say until Pisuk Damim, negotiations, you can still get involved. He says it has nothing to do with the mahapich. Nothing to do with the... You know what it is? It's a way to protect the seller. It's a whole different story. He says, how could it be? The Mordechai says, if you're going to say that in a negotiation shlav, nobody can get involved, so then no seller is ever going to make money. Go think about the seller for a moment. Every single time somebody comes to me, I have an item to sell. The second somebody else wants to knock on the door, I tell him, look, I'm here. So he says it can't be. We have to protect the seller. The seller's never going to be able to get a higher price. He's never going to be able to do anything. So we're trying to protect the seller. If we're trying to protect the seller, then even Rashi can agree. If we're trying to protect the seller, this has nothing to do with the avla of the mahapech. Even Rashi agrees. If the person's in a negotiating situation and he's negotiating a price and they haven't gotten anywhere in the negotiation, and even if they did get somewhere in the negotiations, I shouldn't say it like that, not like the Prisha. Even if they got somewhere in the negotiations, but we got to protect the seller because the seller you're going to corner in the seller that he's never going to be able to sell it for a higher price. So therefore, Rashi can agree. So therefore, Allah Lamaisa, he wants to know. Zelig, what does the Torah want me to do in this case? The Torah wants him, you don't have a Rashi over here, but the Torah wants him to do like the Prisha. The Torah wants him to sell the car to the first person. Now, if he starts seeing the first person is difficult to deal with and this and that, or whatever, okay, under shmuz, right? But that's what the Torah wants him to do. That's the second case. And now, Baisai, I'm going to give you like what we call an icing on the cake. We're going to talk now about a Chassam Sofer. My understanding is, Reb Shleim, the Chassam Sofer, the Olam saw the Chassam Sofer. Did you drink the Chassam Sofer? Did you feel the Chassam Sofer? This is the Chassam Sofer, Rabbi Say. And I want to tell you, I must tell you, I know that there's different Batei Dinim in the world, and there's different Mahalchim in the world, and how to dan these sugyas. And I'm going to tell you that the Chassam Sofer by the Batei Dinim in Artseinu HaKadoshah, the heavyweight. This Chassam Sofer is a very big heavyweight. And when I asked Rav Elyashiv Shailas in this sugya, by the Rav Elyashiv, the Chassam Sofer was an Iker in the sugya. And you have to preface that. You know why? Because there's so many different shittas over here about Tosfos' heading and his Mitzuda and his Dag and his Ani Menakif and ripping off olives from the trees and the dust and Jens. So I'm telling you that the Mahalich of the Chassam Sofer, you must reckon with the Mahalich. And I'm going to tell you 3 cases, 3 stories, and you're going to see how the Chassam Sofer is going to answer up every one of these cases.
Page 41.
Chassam Sofer. Dibber amaschel nekoit hai klola. Chassam Sofer. This is a Chassam Sofer, by this is a Chassam Sofer. Es kann bringen Mashiach as a Chassam Sofer. Das ist a Chassam Sofer. Listen to a Chassam Sofer. Herzlich geht. I want to tell you 3 stories. 3 stories. That's all I came to do anyways, right? 3 stories. One story, every one of these stories came to me. Everyone came to me. And you're going to have to figure out how to done these stories. The names had to be changed for the sake of protecting those. Shmerel had an idea of a garbage business. In my neighborhood, he had an idea of a garbage business. What did he want to do? Make a few dollars. This Nakia of the Kala. Right, So they decided to make a few bucks. So he said like this, look, he's going to put up signs all over the neighborhood. He put up signs all over the neighborhood that, I'm going to collect your garbage at 7 o'clock. What you do is just put the garbage outside the door. See if you like it. For a week, it's going to be free. See if you like it. So you put the garbage outside. By the time 9 o'clock came, the garbage was gone. Some people, they thought it's a gewaldic idea. They decided to hire him. She got a very nice amount. 30% of the tzibur liked this idea. 20%, certainly older people and whatever, they liked this idea. And then that's what he did. And it worked on an honor system. Every garbage that he took, every garbage they would write down and they would tell him per garbage how much. Let's say half a shekel of garbage or something like that. Where are you guys from? America? All right, $40 a garbage. Okay, whatever it is, right? So half a shekel of garbage. And Mamela, azayik the gegangen. Great. Schön. Kitzer, kommt. Who is this guy? We have to change his name. This fellow we're going to call, no, we used Beryl already. What's this guy? Schlechter. No, I can't say that because then you know already the psak. Nimrod. So Nimrod came along and Nimrod said, this is a very good idea, but I'll make it into a business. He started hustling, So he said, you got to make this into a business. So he said, look, I got an idea. I'll get 4 workers. Make the whole matzah for it, He's very upset, finding ehrlich in Gemein. He just wants to make a couple of dollars. And Kitzer, come there. He says, look, I got a great idea. I'll have 4 different pickups. Okay, this is about a month later. His business was going nicely. About a month later, he says, I'll make a pickup at 7 in the morning, a pickup at 1 in the afternoon, at 7 at night, at 12 in the afternoon, and you'll put it out. And not only that, you don't even have, all you have to do is just call in and say which one of the pickups you want. Mamish Gavaldi. Kitzer, his idea, that already talks to me much more. Everybody came home and said I just didn't want to have it at 7 o'clock and this and that, and and a flat fee and a flat rate, and I have 4 different times to do it. It's mamish wonderful. Kitzer, he took 50% of the business, and the only reason why Shmerel kept the 50% of the business was because they felt bad for the poor Shmerel. That's as I get this. So now he came and he asked this question: do I have any halachic standing in the matter? Case number 1. Case number 2. It's a different case. Let's see. Bacher in yeshiva. He's that busy bacher. That bacher? He's that busy. He's busy. He's making money in yeshiva. He's a busy bacher. Busy bacher in yeshiva. He's involved in everything. He had a great idea. Dry cleaning. So he went to the dry cleaning fellow and he said to him, look, Herzchaim, you want to make money? Bring your truck here. I'll arrange that the dry clean, I'll put it, nothing to worry. You just bring back the stuff clean. I make money. You make money. Their clothing are clean. Umnis, kala, vinikia. Everybody's happy. Kitzer is a fellow that works in the kitchen. And they said, okay, we just don't want to have to deal with anything. You arrange everything. We don't have to deal with anything. That's it. We come, we drop off the laundry. You give us the laundry. That's it. We don't deal with it. You deal with the money. So there's a fellow who works in the kitchen. And he has a nice big truck because he brings all the kitchen stuff, all the paper goods and all the plastic and everything. So he says to the dry cleaner, he says, look, I'm willing to just push it, I'll bring it. I'll even bring it. It's even easier. I'll bring it and I'll drop it off in yeshiva. I'm going to yeshiva anyways. I'll bring it, I'll drop it off, and everything is fine. And the dry cleaners, the nusach in this case, whether it makes enough kameen or not, but they said, okay, look, Maisa, it wasn't going so easy with the bacher anyways. So they accepted. The bacher approached me and said, does he have any halachic standing in the matter? Case number 2. Case number 3. Very interesting Maisa. There was a Maisa in the neighborhood that there was a lady who one day she was doing gymnastics with her daughter in the park. Like little baby gymnastics, little children gymnastics. The other mothers watched this and they said, she's very talented. It turns out that she's really, what's a gymnastic teacher called? Jimboree, I don't know, whatever it's called. And we have names? Well, she's a lady that does gymnastics. So this lady said, look, Mamish, 20 ladies came there and all their daughters and everybody, and they're all doing gymnastics in the park, and that's gewaldig, it's mamish wonderful. And she says, look, she has like a whole business over here going. So she knows in Eretz Yisrael, it's called the Iriyah man, the councilman. She knew the councilman in that neighborhood, and she said maybe they can get a certain type of a jimboree and a certain type of this, In Eretz Yisrael, it's called mitkanim, right? Get a certain type of jumping thing and whatever. And the councilman said, great, sure, no problem. And she planned on making a business, right? And she planned on putting up signs. Kitzer came, the councilman, they put it up in the park. Beautiful, perfect for her business. 3 days later, Kipshutai, somebody had put up signs all over the neighborhood that, new class for gymnastics for 4-year-olds. Your 4-year-old daughters, they're going to be in the Olympics, the Haredi Olympics, don't worry. And they're going to be in the Olympics. So she came to ask, let's see, do I have any halachic standing? Now, Abai said, let's talk about the Chasam Sofer. The Chasam Sofer in Siman Ayin Tes. This is Mamish Torah Moshe Messinai. This Chasam Sofer. The Chasam Sofer is adding a new dimension to the sugya. Kloimar, he's learning it in the sugya. But you can learn all these days in Yarchei Kal, and if you don't have this Chasam Sofer, you came out incomplete. That's what Rav Eliashiv would say. You came out incomplete. Chasam Sofer adds a dimension. Till now we're talking about Ani Ma'aper, and we're talking about mit Ramarufia and all these other Italian words. But I want to know one thing. Tell me, what if I put some tircha in? What if I schwitzed? Where does schwitz play a role? So the Chasam Sofer, I'm not going into the sugya. He learns maybe that's the Ani Menakif, and maybe that's the pshat in the sugya of Mitzuda B'dogim. But the Chasam Sofer, he says, where does tircha play a role? And the Chasam Sofer says 3 klalim. Listen to these 3 klalim, Chasam Sofer. 3 klalim, Zok the Rebbe. Zok the Chasam Sofer, klal number 1. If you do a limited, and I'm reading it mila b'mila, go and look inside now. If you do a limited amount of tircha, a miyat tircha, you schwitzed a little bit, what's called schwitz, okay? But I schwitzed a little bit. Zok the Chasam Sofer, so then in that case, if you were mamtzi or mitzia, you created this opportunity with a little bit of schwitz. But you created a mitzvah. So then the second guy has a right to come in. They left it on the din Torah. But you schwitzed a little bit. That's not enough. If you schwitzed a little bit, you were matriach a little bit, and this is based on the whole sugyas and everything. If you schwitzed a little bit, and it's your mamtzi a mitzia, something that Lemaisa, the other guy, can't get, even though you schwitzed a little bit, then, Zok the Chasam Sofer, we left it on the din that the second guy is allowed to get it. Weiter, Zok the Chasam Sofer, let's say you schwitzed a little bit, the Chasam Sofer. He says, but let's say you schwitzed a little bit, and it's not exactly like we described. He says, now, let's say it's a case of where, this person is ein malasot, he can't get it anywhere. He has the ability to get it somewhere else. The second guy can get it somewhere else. You schwitzed. Number 1 schwitzed a little bit, and number 2 can get it somewhere else. So now we say, whoa. He schwitzed a little bit, and you can get it somewhere else. Du bist a schlechter. No way. That's a Russia. Sagt der Chasam Sofer, that's the case of Russia. We say in this case, that gives you a schus, more you than over him. And the Chasam Sofer zugelegt up is something beautiful over here. He says, you know what else? Let's say it's the first guy's business, it's his umnis. He says, that's tantamount, the Chasam Sofer. This is the lumdis of the Chasam Sofer. That's tantamount. If the first guy schwitzed a little bit, and this, not only is he schwitzed a little bit, it's his parnasa also. That's called the first guy can't get it anywhere else also. That's called that the first guy can't get it anywhere else. Hagam, you also can't get it anywhere else. But I want to know, did the first guy schwitz and he can't get it anywhere else? If that's the case, he gets the rights. And in that case, if you take it, du bist a Rosha. As I sagt Sam Sefer. Then kommt ich Sam Sefer with rule number 3. Sagt ich Sam Sefer, but if it's a tircha meruba, if I'm gearbeit, I'm geschwitzt, and you put in your blood, sagt ich Sam Sefer, then that's gezel midivreihem. Then that's gzela. If you put mamish, you put tircha in, then that's a gezel midivreihem. As I state in the Sam Sefer. Abba said with these 3 rules, one by one. What were the cases? Anybody remember? Now there's some Sefer Derech Agav in Kufyat Ches I mentioned before, and over there he seems to be a little bit more liberal with tircha, even if there's a little bit of tircha. There he's answering up a Taisus. In them yet. Anybody who wants to know, I'll explain it after. But there's some Sefer Abba Sayin test. This was on the table by the Melech of all Beis Yisrael. This was on the table by Rav Eliashiv. This is some Sefer. Let's go one by one. First case was Abba Say, the garbage case. He put up signs all over the neighborhood. He took out garbage for free for 1 week. Garbage is a tircha. Garbage is a tircha meruba. Physically, emotionally, psychologically, the ganze Sach. Das ist a tircha meruba. It darf nicht schon kommen zu a tircha meruba with pikuch nefesh and driving, climbing up trees. You look in the Chassam Sofer in a few places, you will see this. It doesn't have to be. You look in others, the Marshal, they talk about this. Wie viel tircha darf man haben? You have to have a tircha where he's going to fall off a tree and die. This person schwitzt the garbage for 1 week, taking everybody's garbage for free and das is tircha meruba. In this case, ich meine, number 1, maybe it's mamish kesel midivreim. For him to get involved, Mr. Nimrod, what do we call him? I forget. Nimrod, as a meinich, yeah? In this case over here, you could have come on, that's a tircha meruba, number 1. And even if you want to say it's a tircha meruba, who can dan, what's a tircha meruba? No, go start your garbage business up somewhere else. Go start your garbage business up somewhere else. And no, it is umnis. It's my only job. It was my only job. Remember, if it's my only job and I can't, so we look at it as if you can't get it somewhere else. And so I said this. This was the psak. And there was another person, the Chashiv here, the Yester Shaila. He said, yeah, but they showed me in the Pischei Choshen, one of the most wonderful works of Choshen Mishpat in our times. I brought the Lashon over here. He says, what happens? A person comes, he has 10 buildings, he has 1 building that he's trying to buy, or an apartment he's trying to buy. Somebody else comes and tries to buy 10 apartments. You're trying to buy 1, and he tries to buy all 10. Yours is just 1 of those 10. The Pischei Choshen brings rayas. He says, that's not ani mahapich. Because I'm trying to get a totally different product. I'm not trying to get your 1 house. I'm trying to get 10 houses. Yours is 1 of them. You were not mahapich in the thing that I'm being mahapich. That's a eyes in a svara. So he said the same thing. Look, he's got a whole different business going on over here with the garbage. It's like a whole different, different matzav in ganzen. He's not just trying some mama papa garbage. Verstehst? He's trying, but this is a toyes gemura. He's being mahapich in the zel bezach. In every case of mahapich, he's just doing it in a more effective way. Over here, he's being mahapich in the same garbage. He's being mahapich in the zelber garbage. Mashenkein, in the case before, he wanted this dira, and this guy came for 10 diras. They're being mahapich in something else. In this case, the erste yid, he's a shlechter and a gazlin. Midivreim. He's a gazlin midivreim. Okay, announce it in the shul. In the second case, what was the second case? Who remembers? Dry cleaner? Okay, dry cleaner. Minimal tircha. He made 1 phone call to the dry cleaner. Minimal tircha, garnished, nothing big deal. Is it his only umnis? It sounds like this bach is making more money than Fragnish in the stock market. It doesn't sound like it's his only umnis. Could we do it somewhere else? He was mamtzi this mitzia, and I can't get this anywhere else because there's no other yeshiva that I'm going. It's not the gay. I can't go to dry cleaner for different yeshiva. In this case, I felt it was mutter. The Fidach Sam Sofer, in this case, it's mutter. Because in this case, look, definitely not tircha meruba. It's tircha ma'at, he was mamtzi it, and it's the first person's umnis, not mamish, and I can't get it somewhere else, this guy can't get it. The second guy said, now you have to reckon with this feita. Now you have to reckon with the second guy. You were mamtzi something, it was a good idea and everything, but it was a minimal tircha, and therefore the second guy could come in. In the third case, so right away you're going to say, dealing with the area, das ist mamish tircha pikuach nefesh, and this is mamish. So it happens to be, and the bureaucracy, it happens to be in this case. He's the councilman that works for the neighborhood. It was a tircha ma'at, I felt. It was a tircha ma'at. But it was a tircha ma'at, and this is her umnis, and she doesn't have a different umnis, let them go to a different neighborhood. She was the one that arranged the jamboree over here. Without her, there is none. This was the umnis. She did it in order to make a business. She doesn't have any other business. And not only that, he could just go to a different neighborhood if you want to go to a different neighborhood, because then they go to a different neighborhood. In this case, I felt it was an ani mahapich b'charara v'rasha. That's the chayra based on the Heilig Chasam Sefer. This Rabbi Yisai is Pachas Yaiser. So what do we have here? Excusez-moi? Is a Rechayim? Could be. Could be. It's not Muchach. It's not Muchach. You have to know, Tircha Meruba might involve, if you look in the Paiskim, emotional too. You know that? It might involve like something, you know what the Chasam Sefer's Lashon is? He says, there's got to be a zah like Samcha Daite. It's got to be a zah tircha that I feel, this is mine. I feel like it's in my hand. Tircha Meruba means I'm Samcha Daite to the extent that it's mine. It's in my hand. You know, by the case of the garbage, it's in my hand. It's in my hand. In this case, I'm not sure. Sorry? I'm going to be Messiah. And then Bez Hashem, I'll stay afterward to answer Shilas. If I say, this is Pachas Yaiser, the Limud. This is the Limud. And I think what's more important than anything is from a sugya, you have to come out of such a sugya, is the Heilige Bashefa feared the Welt. The Eibishter fears the Welt. And nobody can take your money. And the Eibishter feared the Welt. And you know, there's a story, some of the Oila might remember, I think it was in Camp Or Shraga, maybe about 10 years, maybe even more, 15 years. And they would buy meat from a certain supplier. All the years, they bought meat from a certain supplier. And there was one year that they got offered a lower price. They got lower, you know, and the camp is, you know, I don't know, in those days they don't charge what they charge today. So, you know, everything makes enough gemina, Yiddish geld, and this. They went to the Rabbanim of the camp. They said, look, but this is a marufia. You know, this person, he was the person that supplied us with the meat all of the years. And because they did what was erlich, they were spared from eating treifus that summer. It was a summer that some people remember what happened that summer. But they did the right thing, and the Heilige Bashefer protected them. The Heilige Bashefer was Hiden, Tag Hiden, was tut the ehrliche Sach. They did the right thing. And that's what a person has to realize. In this sugya over here, Rabbi Yisai, you have to know, what does it say in the Yad Ramah? The Yad Ramah on the page. He talks about the situation of where somebody is allowed to open up another business. Not where it's going to put you out of business, Lagamre. He's allowed the case of where he's allowed to open another business. People say, Masik Vul. It was a case of where you're allowed to open up a business. The Yad Ramah says, you know why you're allowed to open up a business? You know why we don't paskin like Reb Yehuda? And like Rav Huna, he says, because Memele Parnasa come from Shemayim. And what you're destined to have, you're going to have anyways. So Memela, it's going to come from Shemayim. Nobody's putting you out of business. Shas Ali Kotzarki, you say every day. What does it say in the Gemara in Yuman Daf Lamed Ches? Oma ben Azai, B'shimcha yikarucha. They'll call you by name. Ubimkaimcha yeshivucha. What do you think? You think they could take away your money? Someone could take away your money. Rashi says, Lo yidag lo imar ploini yikapeach parnasasi. No one should die that someone could take away your money. And what does the Gemara say? Ki al korchach. They'll take you back to your money. The Heilige Bashefer will give you back. Umishelcha yitlu licha. Your money will come to you. And what does the Gemara? Ein adam neigeya. Nobody, nothing. Ein adam neigeya bemucham nechaveiroi. You can't touch what belongs to somebody. You can't. Ve'ein adam neigeya, ve'ein malchus neigeya bechaver tekmloi nima. And like the Gemara in Chulin says, the Gemara says, Ein adam noikiv etzboyo ad she'achrizim mishamayim. Your chelik is your chelik. And your chelik is your chelik. And no one can take it away. You have to be mechanech children like that. You have to be mechanech children like that when you learn such a sugya. No one can take away your chelik. Nobody can take away your chelik, Rabbi Yisai. It's mamish. And today, you have to be so careful with these things, with machlaikes. You know why? Because we're the kifsa echas paying the shivim zevim, what you see going on in the world today. And why is it that we're matzliach against the shivim zevim? Because we're kifsa echas. It's aguda echas. The aguda echas. And that's what Rabbi Yisai is our success, our hatzlacha. Our hatzlacha is when we know it's the Heilige Bashefa feared the Welt. What are the words, the Chazon Ish? And the Chazon Ish talks over here. He says the only thing that we're learning in this sugya is one idea. We want to know one thing. When do I have a choivas eshtadlus? No one, pasakte lechayusai, ein al sad hametzias. No one can take away your money. No one can cut off your life source. And if you do what's ehrlich, no, but I want to know if this is my chayvus ishtadlis, I have to find out if this is the right thing to do or not. This, Rabbi Yisai, is the sugya, learned the sugya of nasasa, of nasata b'emunah. Says, that's how you have to come out of this place. You have to come out under a person. It's simcha in this room, the geschmack in this room. You know what you did in the last few days? You planted inside the chayei oilam nata b'seichenu. You planted inside Torah in your lives. You know, the whole world is talking about this. Das ganze Welt, everyone's talking. So hundreds of people are sitting in the Ramada Hotel. The whole world is talking because they understand the value. You put Chayei Oilam Nota B'Seichenu Alavai. The Eibusher should bench the ganze Oilam. Tziki Kim in Alavai next year. You're going to come back, and you're going to come back next year. And Rav Huna is going to give the shir, and Rav Gidol is going to give the shir, and the Heilig Ichsam Seifel give the shir. B'Meir B'Yameinu Amen.